Hello, and welcome to the Movie Explainer. Today we will recap a 2014 adventure comedy movie depicting the story of a teenage boy who receives divine power to become invisible from his mother and how he uses his power for himself but ends up being a legitimate superhero. To learn more about the film, stick with us until the end.
The film begins in a mental institution where an abnormal man is drawing a map somewhere on the wall. While doing so, he dies mysteriously and is approached by a man for whom he was making a map. The scene then shifts to our protagonist, a teenage boy named Michele Silenzi, riding his bicycle to school. Michele is the class's shyest and weakest boy, and he is bullied mercilessly by his peers. He has a crush on his classmate Stella, a blonde-haired teenage beauty, but hasn't expressed his feelings for her yet due to his anxiety. Furthermore, he secretly records Stella's clips on his phone. One morning, a police unit arrives at their school to investigate the sudden disappearance of Michele's classmate, Martino. Giovanna, Michele's mother, is the head of this police unit. The police interrogation ends in futility since all of the students are unaware of Martino's whereabouts. Later that day, while performing his examination, Michele's nose began to bleed for no apparent reason. He rushes to the restroom, where he is approached by his class's two shittiest bullies, Ivan and Brando. They begin mistreating him and eventually take away all of his money, including the one he had squirreled away in his shoes. This is nothing new for Michele, they always do this with him. After school, when the students are on their way home, Ivan and Brando bully him in front of the entire class, further reducing his self-esteem. Since they have taken all his savings, Michele no longer has enough money to purchase a nice costume for the upcoming Halloween, so he settles for a standard one as he must attend the Halloween party at all costs since his crush will be there as well. At the party that night, Michele decides to express his feelings for Stella, but when he sees her, he loses confidence and remains silent. Ivan and Brando find the clips Michele recorded on his phone and play them at the party. Stella becomes enraged when she sees this and confronts Michele about why he recorded her, to which poor Michele has no answer and dashes back home. The following morning, when he wakes up and goes to the wash basin to brush his teeth, he is surprised to discover that he has turned invisible. He can't believe what he's seeing. He believes that the costume he wore last night was magical and bestowed these superpowers on him. Upon realizing that he now has the ability to become invisible, Michele decides to exact revenge on Ivan and Brando. He rides his bicycle to school. A long-haired man with glasses spies on Michele without his knowledge. Michele walks into the classroom, shoots the teacher with a paintball gun, and throws the gun at Ivan. The teacher misidentifies Ivan as the perpetrator and punishes him. The next victim is Brando, so Michele approaches him during a tennis match and begins tormenting him, which causes him to lose concentration on the game. Brando's father yells at him for losing the tennis match and making ridiculous excuses as if some invisible guy was teasing him. He uses his invisibility to his advantage and enters the teacher's lounge to finish the written test he left yesterday. He is grateful to be endowed with this power and uses it in a variety of ways. When he sees some girls exercising in the afternoon, his manly desires begin to arise, and he decides to look more closely at them. He enters the dressing room and begins to have fun, but unfortunately, a girl tosses a towel that falls directly on him, revealing his presence. His heartbeat quickens, and he eventually loses his invisibility. His mother is informed by the girls, but she does not punish him and instead comforts him by advising him not to do it again. The next day, a private investigator visits the school and addresses the students, stating that another student has gone missing and that they have no information about all the missing students. While the investigator is speaking to the class, Michele notices that his body has begun to become invisible once more. He rushes out of the classroom without saying anything and heads home. The students assumed that he was scared by the investigator's statements and had gone home. When he enters his room, he finds his younger sister studying. Michele turns around and tells her to leave the room. She opens and shuts the door but does not leave the room. Thinking she has left, Michele turns back but finds her standing in front of him. When his sister notices his invisibility, she begins to scream, but Michele calms her down and reveals the entire story to her. Later that day, Michele overhears her mother discussing him on the phone with someone, and because he is invisible, he sits in front of her to hear her clearly. He learns from her conversations that he is not her biological son, but rather a foster child. Although she adores him as if he were her own son, the fact that she isn't his real mom remains. Michele, who is now traumatized, leaves the house and goes to the play area, where he sits alone on a cradle and wonders where his real parents are. While sitting alone, he is approached by Stella, who cannot see him but is certain of someone's presence. She begins talking to him, unaware that he is Michele. He notices that mysterious man staring at them from a distance and becomes suspicious that he can see him. Stella makes a smiley face with a stick in the sand as they conclude their conversation. Michele overcomes his shyness and decides to tell Stella that he is the invisible boy and also that he loves her, but as he approaches her at her dancing auditorium, he notices that she is being kidnapped. He tries everything he can to rescue her from the kidnapper, but he is hit by their car and collapses to the ground. Stella opens her eyes in an unknown location, where a doctor examines her in the hopes that she is the child with invisibility powers. Actually, this is a gang kidnapping children to determine whether or not they have superhuman powers. After determining that she lacks superpowers, the kidnapper transports her to a secret bunker where two of her classmates, Martin and Brando, are already held captive. Michele, who is madly in love with Stella, decides to retrieve her from the kidnappers. He dashes back home to put on the disguise to turn invisible but discovers that his mother had washed the costume. He believes that the suit's invisibility has been washed away along with the stains. He becomes enraged and goes to his mother, yelling at her that he knows she isn't his real mother, which is why she washed off his outfit, blocking him from being able to progress. Having said that, he leaves the house on his bicycle and arrives at the seashore, bewildered about what he should do next. Michele's mother is also devastated by his actions. At the beach, Michele is approached by a mysterious long-haired man who introduces himself as Andre. He tells Michele that he is aware of his superpowers and reveals to him that he is his dad. Michele does not believe him, so Andre explains to her that he acquired his invisibility powers from his real mother. He goes on to say that he used to live in Russia many years ago, but the country was devastated by a nuclear attack, which resulted in some humans gaining supernatural abilities, and he is one of them. He goes on to say that a special forces unit gathered such superhumans to use them for their purposes, and because his ability was to read people's minds, he was heavily used and ended up losing some of his vision. He further reveals that many other people were held captive and all had superpowers such as the ability to control an object, fly, and become invisible, such as his mother Yelena. Michele inquires about his mother's whereabouts, to which Kritso responds with a deep sigh before informing him that he fell in love with Yelena and they had a child. After that baby, they decided to flee the military camp but were pursued. Yelena resolved to distract the attention of the military and advised Andre to escape with the baby. Andre escaped with the baby, but Yelena, despite her invisibility, was shot by a man and died on the spot. Andre reveals to Michele that the ability to become invisible is still in him because it was passed down from his mother and is not granted by the outfit. Andre concludes his conversation by saying that because he can read people's minds, he read Giovanna's mind, and after determining that she is a kind-hearted woman, he left Michele at her door so she can raise him as her own child. Michele expresses regret for arguing with his mother without her fault, to which Andre responds that he should apologize to her because she is very sincere and acts as a biological mother to him. Andre then departs after giving him a brand new superhero costume and encouraging him to assist his friends. After a while, Michele's mother arrives at the beach in search of him. Michele apologizes to her and promises not to behave this way again. When he returns home, he is approached by that private detective, who suspects Michele is the boy with the invisibility power and attempts to learn more from him. However, Michele puts on the costume his father gave him and has a brief tussle with the detective before leaving the house. Fortunately, Ivan is on the road with his bike, so Michele rushes to him and sits on his bike. Ivan is perplexed as to who is sitting behind him, but after being urged by the invisible man, he drives away and manages to escape the detective. Michele reveals himself to Ivan in a desolate location, who is astounded that the least popular student in his class is a superhero. Michele informs him that the kidnappers have kidnapped Stella, Martino, and Brando and that he will rescue them. Ivan decides to accompany him in rescuing their friends, but they are both unaware of where they are being held captive. Meanwhile, Stella and her two classmates are attempting to flee their captivity. Stella eventually escapes the secret bunker and ascends to the tower. She draws a smiling face on the spotlight in the hopes that the invisible guy, who is a superhero to her, will see it and emerge here to retrieve her. Fortunately, Michele notices the smiley and realizes it must be from Stella, and the two rush to the location. Here, Stella is caught once more by the guard. Michele and Ivan arrive at the location, where Michele instructs Ivan to distract the guards, which he does, allowing the invisible Michele to enter easily. Michele breaks into the room and manages to free his classmates. Then he reveals himself to his peers, who are all taken aback to discover that the invisible boy is Michele. He tells them they should leave now, but Stella tells him they need to save one more boy. Michele instructs Martino and Brandon to leave and says he will return after retrieving the last victim. He follows Stella, who betrays him and leads him to the room where the kidnappers await. Michele is perplexed as to why she has done so, but a man sitting nearby informs him that he has the ability to control anyone's thoughts, which is why he controlled Stella's thoughts, which helped him capture the invisible boy. He also claims that a private investigator who was at his house earlier in the day was under his control. Stella is transmitted into an evacuation capsule so she can leave because she is useless to them. Michele the Invisible Boy is now fully mad and unleashes all of his hidden power, allowing him to quickly kill all of the kidnappers and destroy the submarine. He also enters the evacuation capsule, and they both emerge from the water safely. Following this, Michele visits his father, who tells him that he will wipe away the flashbacks of his classmates who are aware of his true identity because it could be dangerous for him and his mother if any evil guy learns that Michele is the Invisible Boy. But before he can, Michele asks his father if he can meet Stella before her memories are erased. He meets Stella, and before he can show his love for her, she expresses her feelings for him, but Michele knows that it is pointless because her memories will be erased. Then, using his mind-controlling abilities, Andre eliminates everyone's memories of Michele as an invisible man. The police department believes Giovanna has discovered the missing children, so she receives awards, fame, and promotion. The following morning, everything goes on as if nothing unusual had occurred. Michele is still quiet and reserved, and he is working hard to gain the courage to propose to Stella. Ivan and Brando, the two bullies, are not passing up any opportunity to humiliate Michele. The film concludes with Michele going for a walk with his crush, Stella, while discussing upcoming exams. I hope you all enjoyed the recap. If so, then don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. I'll see you in my next video.